All the Stanley stuff. You know, I mean, that stuff just really helped me define my own style. And getting into my pt-2, getting that from Stanley Clarke also. So Stanley was probably one of the main guys that I studied and learned just about everything that I could get my hands on. You know, even the stuff he did on acoustic bass, Spanish phases for string bass, you know. I didn't even own an acoustic bass, but I would mess around with that stuff. You know, all that stuff. Stanley's just the man. He still is. I think everyone knows that. And I never knew how to get this next harmonic, but I figured out my own way by hitting it up here with my thumb. I also found out you could fret this note and stretch, which I could never do. Hard stuff for me, but that was always the easier way. But Jaco, when I first heard that, I had a hard time believing it was a bass when I first heard Portrait of Tracy. Man. But I stayed up all night, literally until sunup, until I learned that song. You know, and I didn't learn it exactly right, I'm sure, but in searching for it, that's what's developed my whole harmonics, using the overtones on the bass. That's where it all came from, that one night of study on Jaco's Portrait of Tracy. And what I learned from that, there's a couple chords that I still use, and it's in the key of G or C. I got that from Jaco, and same thing, fourth down. All right? So you get, or here. So C, G. All right? And then I realized also from that song, Portrait of Tracy, that these two harmonics can be taken down a half step, and they still work. So, that's pretty. That flat 5 in there. So all that I got from that song. I also realized that a lot of these harmonics that you get from the third, between the 3rd and 5th fret, I tell you what, we'll just stick with these for now, the same ones. That pattern, it's like a backwards diagonal, kind of going from there to there. Right? I see it more as a shape than I see it as notes. I know that shape will work in C or G, and whatever works on these two notes is also going to work a fourth lower. Okay, but I can take that shape and invert it. So instead of here, and now it gets a little weird, but I get here. All right, same thing, a fourth lower. All right, same thing, a half step down, gets real weird. All right, so from there I have 4 chords, then these 4. Pretty stuff, and all that's within these 2 frets, 3 frets, and I got that all from that song, Portrait of Tracy. You know, and that, all of that is only from the here. You know, right here, there's a chord. You know, it's all right in the beginning of the tune. It's amazing what can be gotten from that song. And that's just one of many Jaco things. You know, the Donna Lee, Team Down. I mean, I don't know any bass player that hasn't learned that. Jaco is really the one that got all of us playing jazz lines. And I'm not even good at it, but he got me there. He got me where I'm at. And again, it's from taking a Jaco song, staying up all night, and learning it note for note until I was close, you know. And I was doing this, you know, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I think, if I've got the years right. So that's Jocko. But then there was Larry Graham. Now, Larry Graham was coming straight from funk, you know, in my mind. And he was the master of being able to lay on one note and just making that one note just say everything you needed to say. Where Stanley, you know, I learned how to solo through different things, playing pentatonics and different types of thumbing things. And Jocko, you know, harmonics and harmony. Larry Graham, I learned how to just go, right? Stand, right? But he would just lay right on that one. And I was like, man. And I tell you, here's a little thing that people don't know about me anyway. It was that one note groove that started me going down and up with my thumb. Because as a kid, I could not get that right bounce. I didn't have it. It was, you know, it's not straight. It's, you know, it's got pulses in it. So Reggie started saying, well, why don't you try going down and up with your thumb? And he started teaching me to do it that way. And that was the start of everything. It actually came from Larry Graham. So that's pretty neat, little trivia. Dinner conversation. But also Larry Graham has one of the most complex thumb patterns I've ever heard, and I still don't know it correctly, but it's a song he does called Hair. If you ever get a chance to go back to an old Graham Central Station record and find a song called Hair, you know. And that's not even right. His is more skanky and just a lot better. Man, he's so cool. But there's so many things from Larry Graham. If you go back and find some of the old Sly and the Family Stone, and there's even some videos coming out now with Sly and the Family Stone. Check them out and check out Larry on bass. He's a master at simplicity, but also his stuff can be so simple that it's so complex at the same time. He was the first guy I ever really heard use fuzz on the bass. You know, I mean, just like a guitar. Bad example, but man, he's so great at it. Go find all the Larry Graham you can find. But another guy who is an amazing bass player that's influenced me that people probably wouldn't think of is Prince. Prince had a song called Let's Work. I don't even remember which album it was on, but great bass work on all the old Time and the old Prince, early Prince stuff. Amazing bass work. And sometimes you don't know who was actually playing the bass, but I think a lot of that was actually Prince on bass. Amazing, amazing bass work. But like I said earlier, there's the James Jamersons, there's all these names that I can't even think of. You know, there's Anthony Jackson was playing a lot of that stuff. With Money and a lot of the Gamble and Huff music. There's just great bass players. If you go back and listen to any of that music from the 70s, 60s, and 80s even, you'll get a good insight as to where I'm coming from. Because a lot of the people pay attention to a lot of the flashy things that I do. But the way I like to say it is I take the groove that I learned from these James Jamersons and all these guys that played what would seem to be simpler music, even though it wasn't. They played maybe simpler bass lines, but their groove was really what was dominant. I try to take that, and then if I'm flashy, I make sure I put it on top of that strong groove. And I think that's the only reason people will listen to me be flashy, is if it's grooving. So if you're going to learn all the flashy stuff that I'm doing, make sure that you're grooving first, okay? And these guys that I mentioned,